And like many South Asian fathers, he's very tough on his sons, and he has very traditional views on masculinity. In your compelling memoir, And Then One Day, you explore your own relationship with your father and your struggle to comprehend, and his struggle to comprehend your chosen career pathway. Did your relationship with your father influence your depiction of Lalit? And were there specific moments or characters in Monsoon Wedding that you identified with?
I don't think my relationship with my father affected that, but of course, one never knows where the influences come from. As a great couplet by Ghalib, the great Urdu poet, says, which I'll translate for you. He says, "Ke, these thoughts come from the ether, and it is the sound of the pen, which is the voice of the angels." In other words, when I begin to write, that's when I actually get inspired. It's not by thinking about it, and I don't know where the influences come from. And I think that could be true of any artist, a painter or a sculptor or a poet or even a writer. These influences have been absorbed and they manifest themselves on their own, unwillingly, unintentionally. Because, funnily, I played Mahatma Gandhi in a play, and a very old friend of my mother's came to see it, and she said, "Beta, you were very good, and you reminded me so much of your mother." So I said, "Hey, Auntie, my mother was somewhat better looking than Gandhiji, you know." So she says, "Yes, that's true. But there was something in the language of your body that was like her." Now, I had not intended this, but because I had absorbed my mother's behavior so deeply, she and I were very close. With my father, I could never be close, and we could never heal that breach, which is something which bothers me even today, because I think we both missed out on something very, very precious. But anyway, let that be. So I suppose somewhere my depiction of an older person, I was around 50 that time, my mother's behavior just sort of seeped into my. So that's what happens. And when a piece is well written, that's half the actor's work done. I feel that all the performances for which I've been appreciated, films like Monsoon or Monsoon Wedding or Mirza Ghalib or Sparsh, they've all not been such hard work because of the quality of the writing. And I think in cinema, if the writing is faulty, there is nothing that an actor can do. On the stage, perhaps there is, but in cinema, there is nothing that an actor can do. And I have been, unfortunately, I had to suffer that several times in the course of my career, where the performances were absolutely dreadful. But as someone said, an actor can never be better than the film he is in. I was as bad as those films were. Fortunately, they have not been seen by many people.
In your memoir, you also speak of how you, and apparently others, didn't believe you were good looking enough to become a film star. You referred to other actors at film school as peacocks, and yourself a ragamuffin. I'm curious to hear, have beauty standards changed within the industry? Does one's appearance still determine whether they secure a role? And to what extent now versus when you were starting out?
Well, see, when I was 13 or 14, I thought I looked like Gary Cooper, you know. And then the mirror answered me and said, "You don't." So I began to wonder if I look like Jerry Lewis, maybe, or maybe, and definitely not Shammi Kapoor, who happens to be my favorite Hindi actor. And I realized that no, this is not for me. But I knew I wanted to be an actor from the time I was 14 years old. For the first time, I went on stage, and I began to look at myself in the mirror and try and figure out what it was that I had. since I didn't have the square jaw and the classic Barrymore profile, I tried to figure out what I had, and I realized that what I had was the ability to alter my face, and that's what I worked on. And it's not that I consciously do it, that I think that, oh, in this film I had a beard, so in this one I shouldn't. I don't decide these things beforehand. I let the character himself decide whether the hair should be long or short, and whether there should be a mustache, or whether there should be a beard, or whatever. And I've actually experimented when my beard actually started sprouting. And I figured out that this could be my strength. And as it turned out, that's what it has been. But I don't think that is the reason that I've had so much appreciation from and love and blessings from so many people. The reason is that acting always meant more to me than just a way to make a living. As a child, I was a loner. I had very few friends in school. I was often on my own on Sundays, and I'd spend my time imitating actors I'd seen, mostly a gentleman called Geoffrey Kendall, who had a troupe called Shakespeareana, which used to perform Shakespeare in our school. I consider him the greatest actor I've ever seen. Or do I look like Spencer Tracy? Or maybe I can look like Humphrey Bogart? I'm sorry to name all Western actors, but the fact is that there wasn't an Indian actor, a Hindi film actor, who affected me as deeply as Spencer Tracy did in a film called The Old Man and the Sea. And that's when I realized that actors are human beings. They're not photographic tricks. That this man in the ragged clothes with the torn straw hat fishing actually looked like he belongs in that boat. And that's what really set me off on my search to find how one can bring truth to something which you're not necessarily very familiar with. And that's what I set to work on. So and now I'm actually complimented on my looks, which is the last thing I expected.
I'm glad you mentioned Geoffrey Kendall. You mentioned him in your book, and so you trained at drama school and at film school, and alongside your acting career, you're also an acting teacher. You mentioned you